In fact, when I was a professional athlete, training at least 48 hours, not to mention all the extra training that I do on my own, at least 48 hours 1 week, I was paid almost half of the person cleaning the hall.
Welcome to the One Day at a Time podcast, where we take things one day at a time. Today in the studio, we have Gerald.
Hey, hello.
Hey,
Thanks
Gerald.
for having me here.
No worries. Thanks for coming down. Can you do a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. My name is Gerald. I'm a Singaporean YouTuber / real estate agent. I run businesses in Singapore. So yeah, ask me anything.
Nice. Okay, so you do a lot of things. You do quite a lot of things actually. But the first thing that I want to have a conversation with you about is that you were once a legendary national badminton athlete.
If we are not legendary.
Right. I mean, many people in Singapore play badminton. Right? My dad is also one of them. Like every freaking Wednesday morning, he'll wake up them early to try to book court, play that thing, right? Like, so I know a lot of people who play badminton, but I have never met a national badminton athlete. I would imagine it's quite difficult because it is not something that, people say, I want to be a baker. Okay, then you don't learn how to bake. But, being a athlete at that level requires, apart from like talent, skill, hard work, practice, I guess some knowledge of, like the whole industry and everything. How did you get into that whole being a professional athlete thing?
Right. I think the most important thing, to be a Singapore national athlete, I think the most important thing is environment. Environment will make or break your growth as an athlete. But to be the top in the world, right, or top few in the world, that's when a lot of talent, crazy amount of hard work and dedication would come in, and a lot of smarts, right? So how I got into this scene was that my dad is a badminton coach.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's a good coach. I mean, he was an engineer, technician, I think. So then he started to, transit, had a career switch into being a badminton coach.
Oh.
So he had a very good ability to break down like concepts in a way that I could learn well. And I was also lucky in the sense that when I was young, I grew really fast. At 12 years old, I was 175, which is my height right now. So at that point, I was towering everyone. Everyone is like 1.5 meters tall. I'm like 1.7. So 20 cm higher, the reach and the height in badminton, it's a huge advantage. So then because of that, I managed to get into the Singapore Sports School, which was relatively new at that time. And in sports school, we train almost 12 times or 13 times a week, right? Saturdays, half day. So that's how often we train. And once you're training at that frequency at 13 years old, you'll be pretty good. Yeah, it's hard to be not so good if you train that many times a week.
So do everybody that manage to get into... So Singapore Sports School is not a school that is easy to get into either, right? You have to... Is it easy to get into? I actually have a friend who used to do recruitment for Singapore Sports School.
It depends. Okay, so it's a bit of luck because we always go by batches, right? And it depends on the competition. Like if there's intense competition, then yes, it's hard to get in because only the top few will get selected. But at that time when sports school was first starting out, and they have, the national youth team. There was the national youth team by the association. So at that point, you could technically go to a top school like Raffles Place or RGS and then be in the national youth team. Why go to sports school? Because if you're talented in sports, you can DSA, right? So the DSA into a top school and then be in the national youth team. Why go to sports school? So sports school actually at one point had a huge lack of talent in the sense that there were beginners, not complete beginners that actually entered the team. So the mindset that, hey, it's tough, it's actually quite subjective.
I see. But not everybody that goes into the Singapore Sports School ends up becoming a pro athlete, right?
For sure,
yeah, right. So how many, based on your knowledge, right, how many % of people who go to the Singapore Sports School end up pursuing this as a career?
Oh, very few.
I would think
I think the numbers increased quite a fair bit. In the past, right, let's just say they actually get offered a job in the national team is quite complicated. We just assume team one because there's different tiers of the national team.
Okay.
Less than one per batch. Maybe every 2 years, one athlete would join in.
Yeah, so it is tough. It is tough, right? It is very tough. So it doesn't mean that, I'm in Singapore Sports School, I'm going to be a pro athlete. It's not, right? It's not. Because just now you did mention that, if you train like freaking 13 times a week, you do get pretty good at it, right? But are you good enough to enter the national team, right? So for you, you spent some time at Singapore Sports School and you managed to get into the national team. Why do you think that is?
I think my key strength as an athlete was that I have a good strategic mind. I can always handle pressure pretty well. And I'm good with tactics, especially during like critical points, very high stress conditions. I tend to do quite well compared to my peers. So that's why in terms of and my foundation was weaker than my peers because when I started very late. I started like 10 years old and most of my friends started when they were 7 or 6 years old, right? So at 10, my foundations were much weaker. But during competition, I usually can keep up because everyone gets tense and I actually tend to outperform during competition because it's just the way I work, right?
Right. So your key skill is basically you work very well under stress, whereas some people might not, most people might not actually, because it's a very big hindrance in your like the whole mental aspect and everything lah. So after you became how long were you playing badminton as a professional?
I think it's slightly more than a year to 1.5 years. I can't remember how long exactly it was.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So how old were you then when you became a pro national athlete?
I think I was about to turn 16. I stayed for 1.5 years around there, joined the SEA Games, the Thomas Cup.
Nice.
And that's when I stepped down and called it,
call it a day. So you started badminton at a pretty young age, albeit you mentioned that it's slightly later than most of your peers, but to me it's very young lah, right? So most people it's young. So you started at a pretty young age. You and now you're smiling and you're like, national athlete and all. But I'm sure the journey was arduous. Like training 13 times a week is no freaking joke lah, right? I think it can be not just physically tiring but also mentally challenging as well. And you managed to journey all the way to so-called like you managed to get this very exclusive role as a national athlete. And after about 1-2 years, right, you decided that not for me. Like why is that so?
Yeah, so in terms of training frequently, right, it's actually one of the fondest moment in my life. It was the best thing ever because at that point, it was very clear. As an athlete, I just needed to focus, do the best I can, and the route is very clear. I get to do what I enjoy every day and just be good at it, right? Or be the best version of myself. I'm improving every day. So it's an environment of a lot of empowerment. I feel like, hey, this environment is all focused and helping me achieve the best I can be. So it was lovely. My teachers, my coaches, everyone was very supportive of me. So it was wonderful. It's not as brutal as what people would assume compared to say like army where you are forced to conscript and you don't enjoy, especially if you don't enjoy a role, it's brutal. I think some of us can relate. Whereas in training to be a professional athlete, it's different, right? It's very in line with my passion. So that's why it was engaging. In terms of why I left the national team, that's a whole long story altogether. So as a professional athlete in Singapore, I think one of the biggest issue is after sports career or during sports career and after sports career.
Right.
So intrinsically I love to compete, I love to play, but the money is just not there. So as a professional athlete, we peak quite late in our mid-30s for badminton, and some sports are a lot earlier, like gymnasts. I think my friends peak at 16 and they're like, hey, I don't have time to call it quits. Yeah, but for badminton, you take a long time to peak.
Right.
So there's a huge opportunity cost in life. So far, like universities don't really support athletes while we are competing because the curriculum is very intense. For badminton, we train almost 8 hours a day at my peak. So it's hard to take exams when you're traveling once a month, 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks, and training literally 8 hours a day to study and do well in school. So then the next portion is job experience, right? If let's say you quit badminton or you retire at 35, 36, 37, like the badminton grades, which is Li Zhongwei and Lin Dan, what are you going to do afterwards? Unless you can run like a family business or something, it's hard to find a job at that age. Given you have no working experience, all you can do is smash really well, run very fast. You can be a coach, but how many extremely high paying coaching jobs are there in Singapore? So then that's one thing to consider. So then I was thinking, is that aligned with where I see myself?
Right.
So I wanted to take the time to explore. Like, hey, I also love business. At that point in time, I started to, get caught up in the Rich Dad Poor Dad
Right,
kind
Robert
of book.
Kiyosaki, yeah.
And that's when you're like, okay, so I need to build passive income. How is badminton building me passive income? Wealth for my future that I can
Good
retire.
dad, bad dad.
Yeah, I don't know, like
Nice.
it's not making any sense. I was, in fact, when I was a professional athlete, traveling once a month, training at least 48 hours, not to mention all the extra training that I do on my own.
Yeah.
At least 48 hours 1 week. I was paid almost half of the person cleaning the hall.
Oh, jeez.
Just to give you an idea.
And this is not even as a trainee, it's like as a pro already.
Yeah. I was number 5 in Singapore.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty freaking high up lah, right? So, and you're getting paid half the amount of a cleaner.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so I'm very curious to know, does this apply to all Singapore national sports, or is this like a badminton thing? Like say you're a swimmer or like a gymnast, is everybody getting paid like a similar amount?
It's very different because there are a lot of factors that come into play. Ultimately, sports is entertainment. So if sponsors can get an ROI through your work, right? And it makes sense for them financially, they would invest and sponsor you. So my friends, for example, when they do like wakeboarding, a very cool sports, they have bigger sponsors, I think like Red Bull.
I get it. So it's like being a YouTuber. You don't actually generate much from the ad revenue, but when you have sponsors come in and everything, then that's where you make your dollar bills. So actually it's the same thing, right? You get a similar, you get like a base allowance type thing.
Yeah, and Singapore has like a carding system. So the National Association, if you can qualify for a certain card, they do pay quite generously every month. But the carding system is, in a sense, flawed because, let's say, for example, the goal is to win SEA Games, right? SEA Games is the lowest level of the card. Then maybe, I don't know, they'll pay you X amount, couple of thousands a month. But SEA Games is very subjective. For certain sports where Southeast Asia is a powerhouse, like badminton, it's extremely hard to win SEA Games. Whereas for certain sports where Southeast Asia is not a powerhouse, Singapore, would probably sweep all the medals. So then you will get a very generous grant, right, in a sense.
Right.
Yeah, so environment plays a huge part.
So right now we are analyzing it as a business and like cash flow as a badminton player rather than the sport itself really. And like at least from what I'm gathering from you, like you are very passionate about this.
Yeah.
But at some point, and when you were quite young, you decided that passion can't feed me until I'm 60. So I gotta do something. It's now or never sort of thing lah, right? It's now or never. So when you left, right? When you make that call to be like, I'm gonna try to figure something out.
Yeah.
Right. What was that like? And what did you end up doing after?
Oh, it was a very scary experience because back then I was the top for my age group, right? All my peers were significantly older than me. And I was, at that point, I think I was the first athlete. No, not first. So at that point, I was 16 years old, the youngest, I think one of the youngest in the national team. He had huge potential where everyone is, thinking this is going to be one of the top players in the future. And suddenly he says, hey, I'm going to throw my head in the towel and say I want to leave.
Yeah.
That is a lot of implications in the sense that imagine all the younger athletes in sports school. Right? The 16-year-old who's top of his batch or second in his batch or, when the national team decides to quit, what will the 15, 14, 13-year-olds who just entered sports school think, hey, maybe badminton is not an attractive career. So this has a lot of implications as a scholar on the branding of the sport, right? So then a lot of like my high performance manager had a lot of meetings. I think every week we were meeting. Are you sure this is what you want? Have you thought about it clearly? Can I convince you otherwise? Let's think about if you want to do, maybe instead of saying, hey, you want to throw your hat now, how about a 1 week break if it's a mental burnout? How about a 1 month break? How about 2 months break? So there was a lot of discussions going on about to manage essentially that crisis
right.
from their point of view.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, I was thinking like, hey, I'm 16. We're all going to go to NS. I'm going to try, I think that at that point I was 17-ish already. So I was thinking, if I went out to real world, because my whole life I've been dedicated to badminton, I've done nothing else except train literally every day for the past 10 years, right? So if I went out and try to find something else, and if I do well, great. I found something that I can do and stick with it. But if I don't, I have the whole of NS to catch up with my peers. So we'll come back maybe 1 year later. We're all in NS. Then during NS, I just had to make up that lack of improvements by training extra hard while most of my friends would just chill during NS. Yeah, that's my thought.
So when you left, despite all that, it's very understandable because people are losing someone that, I've trained this guy. This guy's gonna help me with my career and all this other event, and he's like, oh, bye-bye. So like it must have been some pressure making a call also. But after that, before you quit before NS, right?
In fact, my dad wanted to disown me. He even said that, hey, if you leave the national team, you're not my son anymore. I still remember that, okay?
Oh, shit. Yeah. But you have reconciled, it's all good now.
Yeah, and my girlfriend left me right after, on the day that I threw in the towel. I said, hey, I didn't want to be in the national team. My girlfriend at that point, my first girlfriend, left me.
Wow.
That was how brutal it was.
But I guess, not too sure if this is the right thing to say, but for the better, I would think. Because if somebody is with you, whether they are friends or like your partner, is because of your supposed worth and value as a national athlete. And once you're not a national athlete, you basically lose your value, then this is not a very nice relationship to be in.
Yeah, back then we were kids so it's hard to say, right?
Fair enough.
We're not that matured. Yeah.
Then what did you do after your so-called national badminton athlete quitting drama?
So quitting was a huge transition because after I quit, right, a lot of people still wanted, like even my dad, right? He said he would disown. It's a way to scare me into, not disappointing him. Of course, he didn't do anything severe. Even after I left the team, he was like, son, you should still train. Then he would engage like private coaches to help teach me on the side. But my mind was kind of made up already. I wanted to try something else. So back then I was looking at the 4 quadrants, and I was thinking, hey, maybe if I can start my website, generate some passive income and try to get involved in business. I could see, if business is good or not. And then that's when I started YouTubing more than 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that was my first ever video, and I think it got like 15 or 20,000 views at that point in time.
And you made a video on badminton
Yes.
Do you remember what exactly it?
Yes.
Okay, what was it?
How to select your right badminton shoes. It's posted on my Gerald Ong channel, which I then reposted in my badminton channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I reposted 3 or 4 years later, if I'm not wrong. So that was the first ever, video. And there were a couple of videos that I made inspired by Ryan Higa back then. Yeah.
Nice.
So you see Tee-hee at the end of the video.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. So you went from being it's quite unimaginable to many people, I would think. You went from being in a very, very coveted spot, right? Like Singapore's like top badminton athlete to being a YouTuber, which at that time, right now a lot of people are more open-minded. But at that time, I don't think the term YouTuber has even catch on, right? It was just people. There was that era of YouTube where there was all your like Wong Fu and whatever, right?
Yes.
It's a burgeoning period of YouTube, and like you don't really get people saying, oh, I want to be a YouTuber. It hasn't really caught on yet. And if you do say that, people will be like, what the heck is a YouTuber? Like that kind of thing, right? But you went from being a national athlete, which, okay, you don't make much money from it, into something that is even riskier in from a certain perspective, right? Which is making freaking YouTube videos, right? Everybody knew that you could kind of make some money from YouTube, but there wasn't really like the amount of information that there is right now in the digital economy of like how to do that lah, right? Or like the whole consistency thing or whatever. So when you first started your YouTube journey, and you made a video on, you know, like teaching people how to pick their badminton shoes, like what did you have in mind? What did you feel, and how did you feel like that could be that could, like, you know, burgeon into the next phase of your journey, your life?
Right. So at that point, I was trying to look for leverage. And when I was looking at opportunities around, I didn't have a lot of money. Spend it all on gifts.
Nice.
Relationship. I felt that, or what I found was that if I make tutorials, timeless tutorials online, and let's say I make an article on how to select a badminton shoes, or how to smash, right, or how to do a drop shot, those are timeless videos which people will watch over and over again. So it's one-time effort, and I can earn for a very long period of time.
Right.
And if it makes me $1 a video a month, I just need to make 5,000 videos, and hey, I'll be quite financially okay. Right. So that was my train of thought. And sure enough, it did make me quite a lot of money. And that's why I spent a lot of time building. I built a website. It's called The Art of Badminton, which no longer is no longer around. And I built content. I made YouTube videos.
Nice.
And at that point in time, YouTube was much less competitive. So when you started, like when I posted my first video, at 0 subscribers, I was already generating cents every day.
Oh, okay. I mean, sounds not unimpressive, but I know how impressive it is, because these days you can't even generate shit until you hit your minimum watch time, 1K subs or something like that, right? Yeah.
But I think what was hard to fathom was that back then I was a 17-year-old kid, and I was telling people, hey, this is the way to go. YouTube will be big, website will be big. If you keep building content regularly, that's where you make money. You can make a full-time living off of this, and use it to grow a business. And people are like, I think just go to uni lah. So
I mean, even these days, right? Even these days, it's still tougher. And from your badminton channel and your blogs and whatever, I would assume like the revenue came from like ad revenue and all that kind of thing, right? Like AdSense, AdWords, kind of thing. And then you started a badminton school after that. Was that because, you know, from a very young age, you're obviously quite a critical thinker. You just based on your demeanor right now and based on the way that you're breaking things down, you don't really only see things from the surface, like you are a forward thinker and everything. So by starting your whole, you know, content thing, you know, with badminton, and then you progress to realize that, hey, maybe, you know, starting a coaching thing, like starting a school, could basically help you expand and things like that. When did you make that call, and was that call inspired by your father, who was a coach? Right.
How I started badminton school was a whole new story altogether. It's a can of worms. Basically, when I was working with my dad, I left the team. My dad wanted to teach me to continue playing as a private athlete. Didn't work out. So you know what? Maybe become a badminton coach, help him. And when I helped him, I saw the way he did his financials, how he managed his staff. I was like, Dad, this is not the way to go. So my dad was very focused in the high performance sports category. So try to groom a lot of athletes that become the top athletes in Singapore. And I felt that was not the most scalable business model. I think the learn to play market is most neglected compared to the high performance category, because every coach is kind of prideful. So I only want to teach the best. So then, you know, every coach has limited time. They only teach like the best. That leaves the learn to play adults, kids, very neglected. Not many good coaches are in that category.
Right.
So then if we as a good company try to reach out to that market, hey, we'll dominate, we'll get a lot of clients, we get a lot of...
Right.
That's one. And in terms of managing my finances. My dad was like, okay, at the start of the month, I have X dollars. At the end of the month, I have X plus $1,000. Business is good. I was like, Dad, that's not a way to do business. You got to count properly to see where your money is going. And back then, his staff was cheating his money right under his nose. And I was on the ground helping him. I was like, dude, your staff is cheating your money. Then he was like, yeah, I know. As long as they make me more money, it's okay. I was like, whoa, this is not the way to go.
I mean, that is one way to go. I mean, that's one way to go. Maybe not the most ideal way, but okay, well, continue.
So then I was like, I can do this so much better than you. And at that point, he was like, so good. You do yourself, you show me. And at that point of time, my YouTube had a small following already. I think maybe I hit like 1,000 plus subscribers. And I know some sales skills. I did learn from a couple of mentors back then that guided me. So I was very grateful for that. And I knew, like, you know what? I actually have the ability to put your mouth where your money is. Put my mouth where the money is and actually start badminton school. So I started badminton school. Interestingly, I did not know what to name it. So I just named it the same as my dad's company. But it's actually a separate entity altogether.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you name it?
So my dad's company is called Brilliant Generation Training Center. So Brilliant Generation sounds very opiang. It's very old school. So I just shortened it to BG. BG Badminton. That's what I named it. Incorporated it and started to just hustle.
Nice.
So I did grow quite a very comfortable following of students, eventually managed to hire staff, and that's how I started. While managing YouTube on the side.
Nice. So at that point in time, how long ago was that?
Well, I can't remember. I think it was 17, 18, around that age. Yeah.
So it was quite immediate after you left the national team.
Half a year or so, I think. Back then I was in my poly.
Right. So you haven't even gone to uni or whatever?
No, I haven't. Definitely not uni. In poly, I was doing this already.
Okay. So what did you, at that point in time, you were generating some pretty decent revenue from your content. You were generating some pretty decent revenue from coaching your badminton school. Did you feel like that this is it? Like, I'm going to focus on this and scale from here?
In terms of YouTube, the revenue was crap lah.
Okay, fair enough.
In fact, let me share with you the story of the struggle. So you would think that, hey, you make one video, you get $1 a month or 30 cents a month. Hey, just keep scaling, right? But not every video will perform the same. The first few videos were successful, subsequent videos were a flop. So, and I spent a lot of time learning how to build my website. So back then, a 17, 18-year-old kid, how do you even build a website? So I learned how to set up my website. Nice. I use this tool called Site Build It. I don't even know why.
Right.
I think I slept like 4 hours, 5 hours every day for half a year. Generated like almost 15, 16 content pages. Got a couple of traffic. So I was making almost, at the end of 6, 7 months, I was making like $20, $30
nice.
from YouTube every single month.
Okay.
But the website maintenance cost, I think $35 or $40 every month.
So like deficit lah.
I was losing money every month.
How about the badminton school then?
So badminton school is very simple because I was helping my dad, right? I was teaching. So my dad was giving me some allowance for helping him teach the school, which I think is a fair rate. Once I started to have my own private students, it was very simple because it's money for time, right? When I teach someone, I charge them, I think at the time it was $60 an hour. So when I have one client, it's immediately $240 a month, right? That's quite straightforward. So once you have like 5, 6 clients, hey, you have a couple of 1,000 plus, 1,500 a month, you're quite comfortable already. You can start to actually do things with 1,500 a month. Because I live in my dad's place, I didn't have much overhead. Single.
Yeah, I mean, below 20 years old, 1,500 a month is actually you're rich, basicly.
Yeah,
you're rich.
Yeah, but the $35, the $10 deficit every month was very, very painful.
Right. Okay. You have been through quite a journey, especially at such a young age, right? And you have been, even until now, your BG badminton, right? It's still standing.
Yeah.
Still going strong. And it's been, how long has it been?
I don't know, I lost count after 5.
Okay, it's been many years, right? That you are like 29, 28.
39 this year.
29, yeah. So I remember we're around the same age. It's been quite a journey. It's been literally more than a decade, like 18 years of badminton stuff, right? Badminton stuff. Even till today, you're still running your badminton school, still going strong. I recall you mentioned that you've got staff under you right now, and basically it's an established establishment. right? Yeah, and so what I wanted to ask you is that you seem to have a habit, right? Okay, I don't know you. We met a couple of times, right? I don't know you very well, so like correct me if I'm wrong, but you seem to have a habit of changing what you are doing when you get freaking good at it, right? So okay, so you know, like you became like Singapore's top 5 national badminton athlete. Then it's like, then you went into the whole being a YouTuber, then being a whole you know, like starting your badminton school. Is like my dad said cannot, I'm gonna show him, and then you showed him, and then now you work together. You know, like it's and then like now it's all good. You know, you have a badminton channel with over 100,000 subscribers, right? Like a quite I remember it's a very high number. 100,000 for a Singapore-based YouTube channel. It is no mean feat, right? You know that. And you even started another channel talking about finances because you are very savvy, right? Because of your financial interest, you managed to build businesses. You managed to kind of see ahead, and you started a whole finance channel, and it's doing pretty well as well, right? You're like a couple of thousand subscribers, you know, like in growing and things like that. So you're doing that, and then at some point in your like 20s, right, you decided that badminton school seems to be doing well. I'm gonna go into real estate, which is what you're doing now, right? Apart from running your badminton school, apart from doing all the other stuff that you're doing, running your finance YouTube channel, you have become a real estate consultant. So like you seem to have this habit, like whenever you peak, right? Whenever you feel like it's good, right? I am like the top, or I am doing well. Then like you jump onto something else and you start again from scratch. So how did you decide to? Why do you think that is, and why real estate? Because it's got nothing to do with the rest of your life, basically. Well, I guess some, if we count your so-called inclination towards like finance planning, personal finance.
Yeah.
So why do you think that you have this habit, and why real estate?
So actually, I don't. Yeah, just to be clear, I don't have a habit of jumping ship whenever things are doing well.
yeah, of course. It's just
It's that it boils down to this mindset, right? So value investing, right? You wanna do things that is asymmetric opportunity, right? You put in 50 cents of effort, you get $1 in reward. I have a limited amount of time. So in terms of badminton, the economics of the business in Singapore is extremely brutal. And the market size is not exactly that huge. So then I struggled, right? At one point I was thinking, hey, should I just close the business? In fact, at one point I offered, I want to sell the business and close shop. Just focus.
BG Badminton.
Yeah. So do my ex-partner, right? Just close shop. But in the end, I decided to take the helm and scale it to make sure it can stand on its own 2 feet, and that the team has a vision, right, to be able to transform the badminton industry in Singapore. Once I have a solid team in place, that's when I'm like, hey, I can leave this in the hands of my good team. And of course, I'll still be there to guide them, assist them to help scale the business. But I can then put my time in places which I find has the highest ROI for my time. So badminton is great. Like you can make a wonderful, comfortable career in there. But if you want to scale into the tens or hundreds of million kind of business, badminton doesn't seem to be the way to go. That's when I try to work towards my personal finance, where money is a lot bigger. And to be fair, I started a personal finance channel during the pandemic, where I literally can't teach badminton even if I wanted to.
Right.
So that was the struggle, where all the schools were shut, right? There's nothing to do.
You kind of forced to pivot in some way.
Yes, I was forced to pivot. That's when I started the personal finance channel. During that period of time, did quite okay. And I was like, hey, I do enjoy this. I want to see how I can work this out. And real estate is not quite a separate, it is a separate business altogether. But I see it as like a funnel, right? Where I talk about personal finance. If people trust me, people like my work, I do sell real estate too. I can work with them to help them find their dream home that hopefully makes them money as well. So that I see it as an extension, but not quite a new business altogether.
Right.
So in some sense, I'm actually only running two business, right, at this point in time.
Right.
So that's how I see it.
Okay, that makes sense. So you don't have a habit of just jumping. It's like you kind of pivoted into this because you were kind of forced to in some way, and then you realize over, I mean, just based on our very short conversation just now, your passion doesn't seem to be in, badminton or real estate or personal finance. Your passion seems to be like learning and growing wealth in some manner, to speak, whether it's for somebody, your friend, your client, or for yourself. Because the way that you're analyzing everything that you do is, I would say, not normal lah. It's like for a regular person, right? That goes into a job, or even like an entrepreneur, people generally get a little bit more focused and excited about the product development, like where how can I gain more market share and that sort of thing, rather than the, okay, is this scalable? If it's not scalable, how can I pivot? How can I, it's very analytical in a very towards the more depth rather than the, like coverage and like product development. And that seems to be your passion, because everything, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I'm just like reading it based off of what you're sharing with me. And everything that you do, whether it's BG, badminton, or it's your whole, like realizing that I'm a pro athlete and I'm getting paid less than a freaking cleaner, and then like going into one of the reasons why I start personal finance channel is because I have a keen interest in it. From a very young age, you read, Robert Kiyosaki's book, and then you obviously have some inclination towards it. And then you also explained in a way that to build a funnel, this word funnel is what marketers like me like to use. Like funnels are the most effective way to build an audience, to build some kind of cash flow, to build like value and brand and that kind of thing, right? And the value and the audience has to convert somehow to feed you, so like funnel. So like you're very, very well read, well learned and on all these things, which I guarantee you that it's not normal, right? It is not normal. You're not a normal person. And I mean that as a compliment.
I mean, everyone's special.
In some way. So it seems like your real passion, right, is, I wouldn't even call it like being an entrepreneur or a businessman, because you're not that at all. You're more than that, because you go a step further, and you are able to kind of foresee, and because you're able to foresee, you are able to trust the process, I think, which is something that I personally find incredibly hard to do. Along with many people, I also run my own businesses and freelance and things like that. And to be able to have that kind of foresight and have that kind of, because, like whether you're creating content or building a badminton school, or you are like, building your real estate career, or as a personal finance advocate kind of thing, it takes a certain amount of foresight, to have a certain amount of confidence, to have that kind of trust in the process, because these kind of businesses don't build themselves in one day, one year. It takes time.
I think the word you're looking for is long-term investor.
Yeah.
There we go.
As in, because again, right, you're looking at your life as, like a value investing, right?
Yes.
It's like you DCA basically into, so to speak, because right now you're investing time, effort, energy, and you're not like, okay, all in, like I focus on all this. Then you diversify in some way, and you dollar cost average for lack of a better, like you look at it. You look at your life and time and other so-called non-tangible aspects of things as a long-term investment. And so far, in your short 29 years of living on the earth, it has sort of worked out for you in the long term, right?
Yeah.
And it will likely work out for you in the next decade, the next 2 decades, next 3 decades, no matter what you choose to do. Maybe like when you are like 60 or like 40, you decide to pivot into something else because of either circumstances, or like whatever skills that you have built in the past allow you to be able to add more value in that field, which is, I guess, what you're doing right now, right? You feel that, as a badminton pro, there's only so much value you can bring to people, and people will always seek value, right? And they will go to where value is, and you feel like based on the skill sets that you have learned, your analytical mindset, you are able to add more value as a personal finance YouTube content creator plus real estate agent, helping people basically grow wealth, find their homes and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, sorry for that, for the long-winded thing. So what I wanted to ask is, throughout your entire journey, what was your mindset? Because you are an executor, you do, right? And surely there must have been some thought process of that, a deeper thought process of, let's start with, do you agree with what I said in terms of what your passion actually is?
Yeah, I love businesses. I think once I started to get involved and learn about, Warren Buffett, the way he I think Snowball and the life of Warren Buffett. I think that was his book, right? I started to realize, hey, I share very similar passion, the love of the process of being involved and growing a business.
Yeah.
So I have full confidence. Like, I think life is going to be great down the line. But when I try to look, it's very pessimistic. I actually have a very, very pessimistic outlook. And I thought I was the only one who have a very pessimistic outlook in the way I run businesses. So on the surface, it's like, oh, it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of grind, I enjoy the process, it's great. But on a day-to-day, actually, on a week-to-week, I'm actually very pessimistic. Like, I keep thinking, what's the worst that can happen? What are my competitors doing? Can I go out of business? What are my threats, my dangers around me, right? What are my costs? And I realized actually, actually Bill Gates has like a very similar mentality. When he looks at things, he actually looks at threats very seriously. So I think that's when I realized, I'm not the only one who thinks from a very pessimistic point of view.
Right.
Yeah. So once I start to think, that mindset has helped me look at, hey, what's the worst that can happen if it doesn't succeed? So in all the businesses that I tried or the things that I do, what's the worst that can happen if I don't succeed? I'm assuming, let's say I put like 5 or 10 years effort into this. What's the worst that can happen if I don't succeed? Right? In terms of personal finance, I think the numbers look great. But for badminton, there's a lot of challenges as a business owner. I think as a coach, it's great. But as a business owner, there's a lot of threats in the field of badminton, which hopefully, through the years, I can mitigate those challenges. So that's how I try to position myself to be to de-risk basically from these dangers.
Right. So before you even like go into creating a great product and like branding, marketing, all that, you ask yourself, like to summarize what you just said, you ask yourself, what's the bottom line? Right? Am I okay with this bottom line?
Yeah.
And if I'm okay with this bottom line, then it's a go. Let's go. Like,
but now I have a wife, so I need to ask my wife too.
Right. So like you both decide what's the bottom line. Wow, actually I think this is a very interesting perspective to look at businesses because I would say we are similar in some ways because I also run my own thing, right, as a freelancer and everything, businesses. But I'm the complete opposite of you. I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
I like to ask myself, what are the opportunities? So when we focus on the opportunities and the scalability, then I ask myself, what's the bottom line? Yeah. Like discuss with the partners, like what's the bottom line? What are we willing to lose to be able to take hold of these opportunities? Because if I take this opportunity, then it's opportunity cost, I cannot do something else, right? So, but I'm an optimist. I like to, of course, whether it's your mindset of asking yourself what's the bottom line or like my approach of, like which part is scalable, which part we can focus on. It's just different perspectives and we approach it differently. But I actually agree and I feel like more people should do it, including myself, which is to ask ourselves, like, I wouldn't frame it as, what's the worst thing that can happen, but more of like, what's the bottom line? What am I willing to lose? What am I willing to lose to make this work? And then we make practical decisions from that. It's a very, very practical way of approaching businesses. So then my like to wrap it up, if somebody is kind of like in your position, in a sense where I think this is a very common dilemma actually, in a sense where you have experienced it multiple times. I am at the top of my field, I'm a scholar, or I'm at the top of my field, I am a, like award-winning artist, creative writer or whatever. But I'm not sure if this is for me. Whether it's for financial reasons like you, or it's like the thing that they're passionate about is giving them an insane amount of stress, like and they're thinking about pivoting, but they are afraid because the future is very, very unpredictable. You don't know what the bottom line is. And the worst part is there are a lot of emotional aspects to it, which you have experienced. You're disappointing, you think you're disappointing people, right? And people can be not as understanding, like you have gone through that, like your coaches, your high performance coach, your dad, even like these people that that basically are a part of your life, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Right? How if somebody is going through that, what would be your advice for them?
Don't be rash. Because, okay, a lot of times it feels, at that point of time when I was young, it really feels like it's do or die, right? But I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Actually, a lot of times you can DCA in. And if it's a viable, wonderful opportunity, sometimes the best approach is to DCA it in to reduce risk.
Nice.
Like, okay, if this is a wonderful opportunity and you just get 10% of it, sometimes it's more than enough. And then, then once you get a 10% opportunity, you realize, hey, it's fantastic. I can go all in. It's like being a real estate agent, right? A lot of people say here that, hey, you want to be an estate agent, you need to go in full time. If not, how are you going to succeed? But apparently, there are a lot of part-time agents that do very well. And once they get the confidence, then they go all in, quit their jobs and whatnot, right? So that's one. And I think what helps a lot is mental models. So I think Charlie Munger is a big proponent of understanding mental models. And I think in university, there was a course on, I can't remember what it's called. It's analyzing something. It's a lot about mental models. So what you mentioned, like the case of the scholar, right? It could be like a sunk cost fallacy, right? Just because I've invested 10 years of my life into this, how does that change, how I see the future? If it's because I've just invested 10 years of my life and not the prospect in the future, that's a sunk cost fallacy, right? It's like saying, I dump 100K into this, therefore I should continue dumping money into this. It's not necessarily the best idea. So you need to see this from a opportunity cost, rational perspective. And bear in mind, there's a lot of fallacies and that can trick you into doing things that are not as optimal as you can be.
Right. Like the TikTok trend, like girl math.
Yeah. So,
right. I completely agree with you. So I guess step one is don't be rash.
For sure.
And think about it from a more practical perspective, which I guess for many people, like myself included, it's hard, right? When you're going through that kind of pressure, that kind of stress, and feeling like I might be behind my peers. It is challenging to make a practical decision.
Yeah. And sometimes when you get very emotional, you can be forced to make decisions that you cannot recover from. Things like relationships or certain kind of big, for example, your scholar, right? Let's say you jump ship, you lose your scholarship.
Right.
Let's say you're a medical student, the scholarship can be up to what, $500,000. Hey, scratch that. This is going to be a new Facebook, the opportunity cost.
Yeah,
and you lose that 500K. It could be something that it will take you years to recover from. That's why I say don't be rash, right? That's the first tip.
Right. Yes, I think so. I think being rash can have its very irreparable consequences.
Yeah.
But sometimes being rash also allows us to learn very quickly when we make mistakes, especially if you are young enough to make mistakes. I still consider us young enough to make mistakes, right? Like for example, I was on scholarship when I was in poly. I was like full scholarship, no need to pay a single cent.
Yeah.
Then at the end of year one, they say like, hey, in order for you to keep your scholarship, you have to join a CCA and take part in all the volunteer activities. And I'm like, screw that shit. I'm not gonna take part in the CCA. I'm not gonna volunteer for a cause that I don't believe in. I'd rather do something else that I believe in. And then they say, then we gotta take away your scholarship. And I said, take it, which was looking back, now like freaking 10, 11 years later. That was like the dumbest decision in my life. I didn't have to pay a single cent for poly. I didn't have to, but now I have to because I was being stupid right? I was being stupid, but like that allowed me to learn very, very quickly, very young that, oh shit man, like money is not easy to come by. If somebody gives you money in the form of scholarship or whatever, leverage on it and use it Don't be retarded. Just join a CCA and you can quiet quit a CCA. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So I agree with you that like don't be rash because I wouldn't say that that's irreparable. In fact, I'm glad don't give up a scholarship, but I'm glad I did that because at a very young age I learned that, oh shit, I shouldn't be rash. Just like how you have kind of experienced it as well.
Yeah, this is the optimist versus the pessimist speaking.
Yeah, man. Okay, so I mean, Gerald, I really appreciate you sharing your story because I think your journey is a unique one. It's not every day that you meet a top national athlete who started a badminton school, who then become a finance YouTuber, who then became a... It's a very unique journey, and I think it's very interesting to hear a perspective. If anybody is keen to kind of connect with you, find out more about what you're up to and kind of your mindset about the approach, because there are a lot of people out there that kind of have an entrepreneurial kind of interest, passion, but they might not always know where to start, or maybe they're looking for their house. Where can people connect with you online?
Right, so they can contact me through my WhatsApp group chat. So I'll leave the link, I think, somewhere over here.
Nice.
Or you can just check out my YouTube channel at my handle at this place, and I will see you over there.
Nice. Thank you so much for coming in, Gerald.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure too. And we'll see you next time on the One Day at a Time podcast. Peace.